Hi guys, and welcome to today's video where I'll be answering some of your questions and concerns regarding leopard geckos, kind of like a gecko agony aunt. Now before we begin, I do want to put a disclaimer out there. Though I do have qualifications in both animal behaviour and animal nursing, and I've had leopard geckos for almost 13 years, I am not a vet. So if you are worried about your gecko, please see an exotic vet. This video is just an opinion, what I've observed over the years with owning leopard geckos, but if in doubt, please take your gecko to the vet. Please never wait for a YouTuber to reply to a DM or a comment about your gecko's health, because if you're really concerned, it's just best to get professional help. Anyway, let's get on to our first question. It's a pretty simple one from Tom. He just wants to know why his gecko digs a lot. Now, I actually think digging is a very natural behaviour in leopard geckos. I love using safe, loose substrate as it allows the geckos to really make themselves at home, and it provides enrichment. They get to exercise, they have muscly little legs. But I do feel like because for so long loose substrate was villainised, and in some aspects completely fairly, because things like calci sand are really bad, but because for so long people were worried about that, a lot of people used paper towel or reptile carpet, and in those kind of environments leopard geckos can't express that natural behaviour very well, so people didn't see it very often. But now more people have moved to substrates like that, more people are seeing it, it's quite clear to see it is a normal natural behaviour for them. The next question is from Artsy Tiger with their gecko Loki, and they want to know why Loki stopped eating crickets when he used to always eat crickets and mealworms, and whether I have any tips on getting him back eating crickets. Now, I do find that leopard geckos will all of a sudden decide they don't want to eat certain foods. They can be very picky, and I don't know if it's just that they get bored of a certain type of food or they get lazy. Like, why would you chase after a cricket when you can just eat a mealworm that's barely going anywhere? It could be down to the fact of like you've changed something you're gut loading the crickets with. I know once Ziggy flat out refused crickets for months, and one day I decided to give the crickets tomato to eat. Now, I tend to stay away from fruit and veg that's a little bit acidic, but I thought, let's just try this. Literally the next day I offered her the crickets, and she went mad for them, as if she'd been eating them this entire time. Now, was it the tomato, or did Ziggy randomly decide today's the day for crickets? I don't know. But I do feel leopard geckos, like a lot of like predators, if they can get something that's slower moving like a mealworm, why would they go after a cricket? So that could be a reason. And so what you could do there is, when introducing crickets back, maybe use tongs and hold the cricket and move it about a bit and entice your gecko and see how that goes. Equally, your gecko may seem super interested, sniff it, realise it's a cricket and turn their nose up. As I said, leopard geckos can be extremely picky, so you've really just got to try different techniques, and I'm sure one day, literally out of nowhere, Loki will decide that he really fancies a bit of cricket. The next question's from Sophia. She asks how to make her gecko's tail fatter, and when can she move her gecko onto bigger crickets now that it's 8 months old. Now, I'll link a video in a card here and in the description down below. Now, this video I did not too long ago, and is all the reasons a gecko may not have a thick tail. Now, one of those reasons was age, and as an 8-month-old gecko, it's perfectly normal not to have that signature chunky tail yet. But of course, check out that video, make sure you're doing everything else correctly. Now, as for the food size, I usually would gradually move up the size guide as the gecko grows. The ideal size of the cricket to feed your gecko is usually done by the space between the gecko's eyes. But in terms of sizing, like over here we have like micro, small, medium, standard, large, extra large. So probably at 8 months old, I feel like you'd be aiming for like a small, medium-sized cricket. Now, the next question is from Nina, and this is an interesting one. Basically, her gecko, who is 6 months old and a super snow, has this yellow patch, and she said that every time she sheds, it moves a little, but it doesn't get bigger. She just wants to know if this is okay. Now, honestly, it looks like it's just cosmetic. I think it's just a small patch of scales that have an increased amount of colour to them. Especially in like the first year of a leopard gecko's life, their pattern will change a lot after every shed. Like with Gizmo, for example, as a baby she had these very dark bands, but with every shed they would gradually break into spots, and then you'd see new colours like purples and browns. With Ziggy, after one shed, like as an adult, she just randomly developed this black spot at the base of her tail. As for this yellow patch, if it isn't bothering her, if it isn't getting bigger and it doesn't look unusual, it's just probably a unique feature she has. It's probably something deep in her alleles, in her genes, that for some reason this group of scales get a little extra colour. I'd be very interested to see if it gets bigger or more patches occurs as she gets older. The only thing I think is a little bit weird is the fact that it moves a little every time she sheds. I don't know if that's just you think it is, or you're photographing it every shed and it does definitely move, because that would be very strange. This is definitely an interesting one, but I do just think it's probably just something cosmetic. The next question, I'm not entirely sure who this is from. They didn't leave a name other than Never Enough Nutella, which, my goodness, no quote has ever been truer. I love Nutella. But they were just wondering if it's okay that their 2-year-old gecko is much smaller than their friend's younger gecko. And from this image, I would say your gecko looks really healthy. There's a nice plump tail, vibrant in colour. I wouldn't worry about the size. You know, there's a chance your friend's gecko may be a male, which that can affect the size. Usually males are a bit bigger. Your friend's gecko could be a giant or a super giant. It may even be overweight. Like, no shade, just facts, you know. To me, your gecko looks very healthy, and it may just be a bit smaller. There is a slight variety in size when it comes to leopard geckos, not massively, but they say like the average length can be anywhere from 8 to 10 inches, and 2 inches can make quite a difference. The next question's from Matthew, and he said that his baby gecko Apollo keeps trying to escape from his vivarium. Is this normal? Does he want to escape or explore? Now, firstly, if he is opening the door and there's a chance he could get out, get some of these like rubber wedges. I use them for all my vivariums. You can get them online or in reptile shops. They're fairly cheap, but this just prevents the doors from opening. Now, as for whether he wants to explore or escape, it's definitely an interesting one. It's something I often ponder. I noticed that leopard geckos definitely do this more in the summertime, so I don't know if that's due to like an increase of heat, so they get more energy, or for the, like my geckos, it's normally the females trying to get out, and I think they just want Diego. But sometimes I do wonder, like, do they do this because they're bored, or because there are crickets or something left in there that's bugging them, or have they just pooped and it smells like really bad and they want to get out? It's tough to say for sure. I just think that they don't understand the concept of glass, and so they see like a landscape in front of them and want to carry on walking, but there's something that's stopping them and they can't quite work it out. So what I will say is, feel free to like handle your gecko, like let it explore. Obviously exercise is great for it. I do find though, if you keep doing this, the more they scratch, because then they're like, oh, they're going to get me out. So it's like positive reinforcements. You have to, you know, you have to watch out. But just make sure your setup's good, it's not too small, it's got lots of places to hide, it's interesting, because obviously if you do have a really small tank, there's nothing for the gecko to do, the gecko's bored, there's not enough room, it is going to scratch more. But I will say, geckos definitely tend to do this more in summer. And the final question is from Dawn. Now, I will say there's more to this story than I'm going to say just because it's a fairly long email, but I would like to say that the condition of this gecko isn't due to anything Dawn has done. If anything, the gecko is in a far better place now, but sadly it does appear to have metabolic bone disease. Now, Rafiki, the gecko, will eat mealworms, but obviously Dawn doesn't want to just offer mealworms, she wants a variety, and the gecko doesn't want to eat crickets, which seems to be a running theme of today's video. So she wants to know what else she can offer Rafiki. Now, firstly, I may email Dawn just to check that he is getting some kind of veterinary care to help with this metabolic bone disease, but yeah, when a gecko gets to this point, you know things are bad, because interestingly, with metabolic bone disease, when it gets to the physical symptoms, this is like the later stages of MBD. That means there's already been a lot of damage that's gone on inside the gecko's body. I don't want to like sound like, oh, you know, it's gone, there's no way back. You can definitely help them recover, but if you have a gecko, you see a gecko that has physical symptoms like this, it's been suffering in this condition for a while. This thing doesn't happen overnight. Now, as I said, I read Dawn's email. This isn't down to her negligence. If anything, you know, Rafiki's in a better place. He has a lovely tank, and now he has a UV lamp and getting the supplements it needs, and its food is getting gut loaded, so it's all good. But I would say, of course, if you can, if there's something they can do, then seek veterinary treatment. Just see if there's anything you can do to help with his limbs. It may be too late at this point, but I hope he's not in too much pain. Now, the original question, why we're here, is food. Now, there's definitely lots more you can offer, such as calciworms, hornworms, dubia roaches. Moray worms may be a little bit tough, but you can always try. Silkworms, there's quite a variety out there, so feel free to explore all those options. But yeah, I hope this has helped. I got a lot of questions, so if you haven't seen yours mentioned today, it may be in a future video. I have a lot to go through, and as I've said in previous videos, it really pays to follow me over on Instagram, as that's where I post when I'm looking for entries for videos like this. Now, as I said, I have a lot to still go through, so I'm not looking for any at the moment. And if you do have a question, I'd really urge you to please go through my videos, type a keyword into the search bar, look at the FAQ Friday playlist, because there's a lot of questions I get asked that I have answered many a times in videos. I have over 600 videos, so there's a lot to go through, but you may find your answer there. Anyway, if you haven't already, please subscribe and remember to ring that notification bell. We recently passed 175,000 subscribers, which is insane, so thank you so much for that. Anyway, thank you for watching, guys, and goodbye.